Welcome to the Love Dog Podcast. I am your co-host, Raina Butcher, here with our host, Dr. Sarah Hensley.
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. Hey, what's up?
Not much, man. Just got a sick husband.
I know.
That's sad.
Girl, don't get me sick.
I know. We drove separate. I am fine so far. He's got the flu, so that stinks.
Well, that's just what happens this time of year when
It
you have
does.
little ones.
Oh, yeah. And we're avid gym goers, so we probably got at the gym. Even though we sanitize our hands and wash the wipe down the equipment and everything, you just never know who's breathing in your face.
Little kids are little germ buckets,
I know
too.
they are. I love them to
bring in
death,
a
but they're
ton.
always naughty.
Yes.
We have a first grader and a second grader.
Yeah.
So, and then where I think they missed a lot of school during COVID and like kind of during key immune development years, like there's some science that's saying that their immune systems are kind of behind. So like I know, they just didn't get the exposure and get that immune defense. They're just now getting it.
Yep.
So yeah, they're little typhoid Marys.
Which
Love them to death, though.
Yes. Which makes me think about our new affiliate. Speaking of the immune system, Armra Colostrum is a great booster for the immune system.
Yes. It has fixed all of my tummy issues.
Mine too, for the most part.
Which is crazy because I didn't have that many. I mean, my tummy issues used to be like severe. And so were yours.
So bad.
Because, we both had incredible trauma, and trauma actually changes the gut. It changes the microbiome of the gut. It changes the gut motility. The gut is so affected by emotional trauma.
Yep.
So many people are out there going to doctors trying to find other causes for their tummy issues when it could be their history of emotional trauma or relational trauma causing their gut issues. Yep. And some of those changes can be very, very lasting. And I have been very, very honestly shocked that since taking this product, my tummy issues have the lingering stuff. Because again, most of just healing came from healing my emotional trauma, but just the lingering little things that I had are gone.
Yep. And I'm coming up on about 2 years of being pretty consistent with it. And knock on wood, I haven't even had a cold.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like Donald had strep. Like when the kids get sick,
Josh
I haven't
got sick. I did not get
gotten
sick. And listen, my immune system has taken a hit over the years. And when I had COVID, I had it bad. Like the OG COVID.
You had OG
and
COVID.
It was bad.
And I remember because it was Lexi's birthday party and you broke out in like the COVID rash.
Yes. I had I think I had some like hallucinations.
You couldn't even walk across the room.
It was awful. But so, and I think some of that was attributed to just like having sort of a weak immune system.
Yeah.
And Armra has changed that for me.
Yes. I am so happy with the product. It tastes so good in water.
It's a game changer in the
I
water.
love it.
I'm sort
the
of addicted
watermelon
to
is I know, me too.
Watermelon's my favorite.
Yes. I like the watermelon the best. The blood orange is good though too.
Yeah.
So.
And now they have the big, huge jugs.
Oh, nice.
That are like, I know y'all can't see this, but they're like massive.
Nice.
Well, I'm gonna upgrade to that on my next order.
Okay.
Because I want my whole family to use it.
Yeah. So I've tried the flavorless, which it's completely flavorless. You can't taste that, but the watermelon is my favorite.
Yeah, it's good.
So you can visit their website and use code LOVEDOC and get 15% off. So we encourage you to do that because I think it's making my hair healthier. It's making my skin healthier. It's good for hair, skin, gut, immune. Yep. It is sort of your all-around supplement for health.
I love you, Armra. Thank you. So episode 41.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about friendship in your 40s.
Yeah, friendship in your 40s. And if you're not in your 40s, if you're in your 30s or your 50s or whatever, like this is a roundabout number. Basically, we're going to talk about adult friendships. And I think we need to focus on how your friendships will change when you start to earn your attachment security. Because boy, oh boy, do they change.
Yeah, they do. And tell our listeners, in a roundabout way, of course, why you think that is.
I think because when you become attachment secure, you start to notice other people's attachment issues and other people's trauma responses. You start to identify those really easily. And you see that people are operating from lower capacity. And some of the friendship drama and things that they bring to the table, you aren't willing to participate with because it doesn't feel good to you anymore. You're not thriving, especially if you're a fearful avoidant, right?
Yeah.
Who sort of like they thrive off of drama. you become very anti-drama.
Yes.
And you become very comfortable in asserting your own boundaries and what you will and will not accept or will and will not do.
And protecting your peace.
Right. And people who, for example, like us, who used to be, at least I know I used to be a little bit more of a people pleaser.
I'm still working on it.
Yeah. Raina's like, I admit, right? Like that's one quality that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people that were used to crossing boundaries or taking things from you will get very upset at that.
Yeah.
And I can think of one friendship in particular that we parted ways. It was probably about a year ago, maybe. And this particular friend had always been filled with lots of drama, and I always did my best to. But she was a very sweet, very good-hearted person. Still is, I'm sure, a good-hearted person. We haven't been in touch in about a year, but it was a one-sided friendship. It was just constantly texting me for relationship advice, but never asking how I was doing, never asking how my family was doing. I would ask her to hang out. She was always too busy. Yeah. But every time there was the slightest hiccup in one of her relationships, you know, she would want to talk to me for hours. And it just felt like it was such a one-sided friendship. And, you know, she wasn't willing to engage with the real work of sort of and taking accountability of acknowledging of her role and participation in some of these relationship issues. And she just wanted me to tell her, you're perfect. It's all the other person's fault.
She just wanted you, and I think this is a big game changer when you find your attachment security. You're no longer willing to tell your friends just what they want to hear.
Right. And that was a huge issue. Yeah. And then so some of the gentle, you know, truth about maybe what she needed to work on was not well received. And she, when I kind of said this feels like it's becoming a one-sided friendship, you know, I have a life outside of work, right? And outside of talking about relationships. And I would like to share that with you and have that reciprocity. She got very angry and essentially did what she does, which is sort of exit harshly. And I was okay with that at that point. I was kind of accepting that it wasn't a good fit between us anymore as friends. I have two really good long-term friends from college that I keep in touch with. And then you, and then my husband's like my best friend too. So that's a really full life for me. I don't have the desire to go out and have these wild girls' nights or do any of that stuff. I'm just fully focused on my family and the people that I feel like are on my level emotionally and maturity-wise, because they are not going to disrespect my boundaries. They are not going to push me hard.
I think, too, one thing that has really come to light for me as I get older and take inventory of my friendships and what they mean to me is that I can really tell who is able to show up authentic. And when it feels off, it just feels bad.
Yes.
And so because I want to protect my energy and my time, energy is a big part of it for me. Because I can, again, once you start to become more secure, you're just able to easily acknowledge the feelings that show up in your body when you're around certain people. And
for sure,
it's been a struggle because I am still in this state of, you know, wanting to please people. And I haven't quite found the root cause of why that is yet.
Would you like me to tell you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
This is going to be a coaching session for Raina today.
Yeah, usually it has to do, again, with attachment trauma, because pretty much all of our emotional problems have to do with attachment trauma. And, you know, people pleasing is essentially one way you learned in childhood that you could get safe connection. Right. If you were pleasing to others, if you weren't disruptive, if you made other people happy, that gave you access to safe connection. And so look back into your history and to see where did that start. Okay, let's look at your family dynamic. You're the youngest of four. You had a chaotic house with a mother that was highly reactive and a dad that was somewhat dismissive, you know, just as a lot of men of that generation could be. And so how did you learn how to navigate your mom's reactivity and to not disrupt your siblings because they would beat you up?
Punch me in the face.
I mean, you had, you know, siblings close in age. You were, you know, we four of you guys.
Stair step, very close.
So can you imagine that maybe you learned to be pleasing and to make other people happy as a way to try to maintain safe connections both with your siblings and with your overly reactive mother.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Thank you. That was easy.
Yeah. So, but you don't need to do that anymore, right? You don't need to be pleasing to your friends in order to maintain safe connections. You have me, you'll always have me.
Yeah.
You have your husband, you're always going to have your husband.
Yeah.
I know people are probably laughing at that, but we have secure relationships, and so we can absolutely know that divorce isn't going to happen for us. And again, people are probably laughing at that, but there is a difference between being in an insecure marriage and being in a secure marriage or relationship.
Josh is definitely my safe space. I know
he's a very secure person.
Yeah, I know that he is the one person totally where I can just say, do, be my very, very messy self. I still struggle even with you. We were having a conversation, and this isn't because of you. This is me. But we were having a conversation about the untold thing.
The untold trauma that we can't talk about.
A few weeks ago. And I felt like maybe I was a little too aggressive and not compassionate enough in, how I was feeling about what could potentially come of it. And girl, I ruminated on that for 48 hours after that conversation.
I left that and I was like, well, she's right. She's right.
I think Sarah's mad at me. I told Josh, I was like, I think
never mad
I think
at you.
I upset Sarah. I was like, I was a little brash, a little aggressive. I was like, I don't think I was compassionate enough. I don't, all the ruminating thoughts that, that we tend to, I tend to still do when it comes to speaking my truth and what I really feel. And, and I've struggled with this with multiple friends. I have a childhood friend who I love so dearly, who is extremely smart, extremely beautiful. It's a different dynamic because we grew up together, and she's the one I'm the closest to in terms of that, in terms of growing up together and still being really tight knit. But there are some things, that I had to come face to face with her recently and have a hard conversation with. And, when her reaction back to me was, well, maybe you've just outgrown the friendship, I wasn't willing to accept that because in bringing it up, what I was trying to do was seek connection.
Right. And mend things.
Yes.
And making sure that you guys can operate on a page that feels good to both of you.
Right. And that's respectful.
Absolutely.
Because we sort of have this dynamic to where because we did grow up together, there's this strange love-hate banter. And again, as I get older, it just doesn't feel good to me.
Right.
It just doesn't feel good to be oh, well, yes, that's what you did. Yeah, that's what I did 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's not the same person you are now. And I think that outgrowing friendships as you earn your attachment security is probably more common than we talk about. And I don't want that to scare anybody to not achieve your attachment security. But I think that it improves your life because you start to better recognize how emotionally immature people will drain you and push your boundaries and make you uncomfortable in their requests, or say things that are deeply hurtful that you would normally before, maybe when you were insecure, laugh off or let pass.
Right.
And when you earn your attachment security, you are just okay with letting go if it needs to be let go. And you also have the skills to try to initiate a healthier connection and have hard conversations that need to happen. Yeah. But not everybody is going to be receptive or reciprocate that, depending upon their own attachment traumas and wounds that affect the way that they are able to show up in intimate or vulnerable conversations.
Yeah. And I think this crosses even the line of siblings, right? Our siblings, because we have these friendships with our siblings and our family members. And, these are things that I've even struggled with my sisters, because we are extremely tight knit. But as I get older, as I become more secure, as I just become my higher self, right?
Yeah.
I have a higher vibration. I have more capacity.
More faith.
Yeah, more faith.
More love to give.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't want people to view me to how maybe I once was.
Yeah, right. And I get that. And I mean, there are people that have known me like you before. I achieved my attachment security and healed a lot of my trauma and after. And it's quite the difference.
Oh my gosh.
And I see it in you too.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the early days of us partying and acting. I mean, we never did anything horrible, but I mean, we took out
really shallow back
we were very shallow because the things that we cared about were things that gave us external validation because that was the only thing we knew to make us feel better, to soothe our wounding, right? Was, can we get lots of likes on our selfies and can we, go out and have cute pics and can we, look good in our outfits and it was just all about this external validation. We don't even
take pictures.
We take no pictures. And that's a problem, really, because we're like, we're never going to remember this.
Right.
But I think, now you and I are so much just more about peace, about honesty, about support, about respect.
Yeah.
You and I can have hard conversations if we need to have them.
And we've had to have some.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I think but that's the beauty of our friendship, because I've had to have really hard conversations with a lot of my friends, and it's been the demise of it. Where
Always.
with you, it was like when we had our really hard turning point, it created this evolution in our friendship that has brought us to where it is today.
Right.
Where there's so much mutual respect. There's so much understanding.
Absolutely.
There's open communication.
For sure.
And I don't have to be like afraid, right? Like I can just feel safe.
Yeah.
And it's cultivated just this real safe space for me in friendship.
Right.
And it's why I'm like, well, at the end of the day, Sarah's probably going to end up my only friend by the time, give it 10 years. And it's just
Honey, I hate to tell you, but my other two close friends who, we keep in touch, but they live all the way out in LA.
Yeah.
So we're not going to see each other that much.
Right.
In terms of other girlfriends here, I mean, you're pretty much it.
Yeah.
But I have 4 kids and a husband who, at the end of the day, I will hang out with him all the time.
Right.
Because he's my bestie.
Right. Yeah.
We are absolute best friends. And so I don't feel the need to have this huge friend group anymore. And I do think some of that's related to my attachment security. Yeah. Because one, I don't need someone to soothe me all the time when I'm upset. So I don't need a Rolodex of people to call to vent to.
That's right.
Because I can regulate myself. And if I do need some co-regulation afterwards, I can call you or I can call Donald and say, let me just check myself and my thinking on some of these or let out some of this frustration. But I've already done all of the inner work before I come to you guys for the co-regulation. And when I teach this in my course in relationships, I talk so much about how self-soothing and self-regulation has to come first because 2 dysregulated people can't regulate each other.
That's right.
And so you have got to be the one, because you're the only one you can control, to show up regulated in any intimate situation so that if the other person is dysregulated, you can offer that co-regulation. And then when both of you self-regulate, that's magical because you can come and sort of have that icing on the cake of co-regulation to just really solidify the repair, right? And the moving forward with trust and respect and love when there has been conflict or difficulty in a relationship. And so a lot of people on the anxious side of the attachment spectrum really have a hard time understanding this. And I actually did a video yesterday on socials that did pretty well, which was, hey, anxious folks, when there's conflict or difficulty, you need an immediate timeout. I know you want to fix it right now, but you are showing up to the conversation dysregulated and anxious, which means that you are going to demand, you are going to be more critical than you should be. You are going to be a little bit more reactive. You're not going to be mindful of your tone, of your body language, of the other person's perspective. Those parts of the brain only turn on when we're regulated. And so both people sort of taking an initial timeout, the anxious one and the more avoidant one, if that's the dynamic, can benefit
or if there's
from a
too
break.
Anxious.
Yeah, if there's 2 people that are highly anxious, I mean, you both need a breather. I mean, those people rarely end up together though because they don't trigger each other as much.
Yeah, but friendships do.
They do. Yeah, 2 anxious people in a friendship will trigger the crap out of each other.
That's if anything, that's what I've attracted in my friendships.
Very anxious people.
Yes, because
extremely anxious people.
Well, and I think specifically because anxious people want to fix things, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're attracted to each other because one wants to fix the other one and the other one wants to fix the other one.
I think 2 anxious people in a friendship is much more common than in a romantic relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, and I've I mean, you know this. I had a hard breakup with like my best friend is what I would call her from the past. And
let's just say I just tried to warn her about this person and their behavior for
even back then.
Years.
Yeah.
But what I chose to do was I chose to, be a little bit honest, but then back off and just say, I respect your friendship.
Yeah.
And you guys have to work it out. And even though I was not a huge fan of this person for a lot of because of how she treated me.
Yeah.
Because she was deeply jealous of our friendship. But I chose to just kind of let that unfold and be respectful and kind and leave it at the door.
It's so interesting because you see so much when you're actually able to remove yourself from these things and see it from that hindsight view, because obviously this friend and I, looking back, we're extremely trauma bonded, just like you would be
super trauma bonded
in, a romantic relationship. And it was by far the hardest friendship for me to let go of.
Sure. You guys had a long history way before we met.
Felt like a breakup. Like, I'm talking like laying in bed at night, crying.
Sure.
Really struggling in terms of like the anger that I felt around it. I felt a lot of anger.
Right.
And I feel like just recently I've been able to let that anger go.
Absolutely.
And ironically, she reached out to me. And, and interesting enough, in her message, there was no change.
None.
Zero.
And see, she has not left her dysfunction and attachment trauma behind, and you largely have.
Yes.
And so again, it becomes crystal clear when someone is operating from a very insecure space in an emotionally immature space.
Yeah.
And so that emotional immaturity, there's only so many times you can tell somebody, hey, this isn't a good relationship for you or situation for you. And just like my friend, this friend was calling on you quite heavily for relationship advice from a relationship that was utterly toxic, that you could not no longer support because of how abusive the relationship was.
Out.
So you could no longer say, I support you being with this person. Your stance was you have to get out. It's not a safe relationship. What can I do to help you get out? And when that's rejected, then there's not much more you can do.
No. And on top of that, it just made us so dynamically different because I never, this isn't about shaming friendships who are, that are friends that are in different parts of their life than you. But that's essentially what happened, is that we just ended up growing apart and we could no longer connect on the drama and the trauma
and the pain and the dysfunction.
And so then it was like, again, this hindsight 2020 sort of thing where I was like, wow, were we ever friends? Yeah. I mean, were we ever truly friends, or were we just so connected through the crap that we just didn't know any different?
That's right. And I think that was what it was. I think both of you guys experienced a very abusive relationships at the same time. You were trying to get out of those relationships together. You were in a very isolated part of the state. There's rumors about Harlan.
Yeah.
It's not.
We got out alive.
Yeah. I mean, no offense to anybody who lives in Harlan.
No, it's a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place.
Yes.
It's just that if you're not from there and you're isolated without a social network there and family there,
very difficult.
There's not a lot of resources there if you're going through a hard time. I want to just clear that up.
Lots of witness value.
Right. And so it's one of those things where you were very isolated. She was very isolated, and you guys really were able to connect and have each other for that support. And so, of course, your friendship was very, very long standing, and I know why that was so hard for you.
Yeah.
And all I can say is
when I met Josh, everything changed. Everything changed in our friendship, and I think it was, again, because I had this like strange epiphany, and it's not that profound, guys, but it was like one day I woke up and I was just like, oh my gosh, all this time, all my life, I've had this perspective that, you know who your true friends are when shit gets rough. No, you know who your true friends are when shit gets good.
When you get, listen.
When shit gets good.
when I have been in rougher times of my life, lots of people want to come and weigh in. Lots of people want to try to see you fall. When I rose to the top, that's when I got the most hate.
Yes.
And that was when I was the kindest and most respectful I'd ever been in my life.
Yes.
And the most gently honest and help. I try to be loving and honest and respectful in all relationships, even difficult ones. But there comes a point where you just say this, like, there's nothing in common here anymore. And I want to talk about men a little bit because I think men really get left out of the friendship space. I think it's so much easier for women to make friends than it is for men to make friends later in life. And I know clients that I've had who, whose wives were their best friends and then now they're getting divorced. And I mean, there's lots of attachment dynamics in their relationship, right? That obviously was the cause of the divorce. But now they're like, okay, our friends that we had were all like more coupled friends. Right. Now I'm separating or divorcing and they're choosing her or, whatever. And
that's a lonely feeling.
It's a lonely feeling because that happened to me when in my first marriage, all of my female friends, except one that I can really think of that lived here close, well, one besides you, were all attached to my husband. Sure. It was all my husband's friends' wives. And so I know what it feels like to go through a divorce and then to like lose these friendships because he was friends with their husbands before I knew their wives. And so, of course, those friendships are going to sustain, right? And so then I was sort of like...
This is an important topic that I didn't even think about.
It wasn't comfortable to reach out to those women anymore, right? Because they were Team Jared. And I get that. And maybe they should have been because they, long histories there, right? These were his childhood friends. That was one thing about my ex-husband. He had a lot of childhood friends. And so their wives became my pals.
Right.
And then that was just no longer one day the dynamic.
Right.
And so I felt like I lost a social group.
Network too.
Yeah, my social network.
Yeah.
And I know that for men, it's even more awkward to like try to start a friendship. And I know that, my husband, he doesn't live in the town where he grew up anymore. And a lot of the people that he was involved with, like in the military and stuff, they have a lot of trauma. They haven't handled their trauma as well as he has. He's lost a lot of friends. My husband has had more friends die than anybody I have ever known. And he even told me
that's heartbreaking.
That, making new friends seems hard because he's just not willing to go through the loss.
Oh my God, that's heartbreaking.
A lot of his friends were vets.
Right.
And they either came back completely traumatized or committed suicide. Or ended up in prison or overdosed. Like, what do you do with that, right? And that's another whole thing that I'm really passionate about, which is the veteran mental health and veteran mental health awareness, because we do not even a sliver in this country of what we need to do for our veterans. Sure. But just the amount of people that he's had die or go to prison or end up alcoholics that can't function, too many to count. So he's like, now here I am approaching 40. He's a little bit younger than me. And he's like, what am I going to do? Walk up to somebody in the gym, be like, hey, you want to go hang out?
Want to be friends?
I'm like, no. And so, I think this is where there was a sermon at church the other weekend that was just so moving. And it was really about finding your people that are, they called them your 2 a.m. people. Like if heaven forbid your child is in a car accident and passes away in the middle of the night, right? Your teenager, who's going to show up at your doorstep?
Yeah.
Right. To hold you up. And I mean, I don't have that experience of losing a child, but I had the experience of my ex dying, and that I don't even remember that night.
Yeah.
I don't even remember it. Yeah. I don't remember sitting on the floor eating pizza.
We did.
I know. But those like, and I feel bad because the other person that was in that room was when the friendship that ended that I just talked about. And that was hard because she did show up for me and she was a good, loving, kind person. But her problems are too drastic now that I can't relate to her. And I tried...
Well, there was the fork in the road,
to give as much compassion, empathy, and support as I could until it became so draining on me that I felt like, hey, like I can only do so much, and I want to have other aspects of our friendship versus just talking about your relational trauma.
Yeah.
And that is the fork in the road where you put me in.
Absolutely.
You had that same conversation with me.
Yeah, I didn't handle it well, then. I
think
handled
I took it well,
poorly. You took it so well. I mean, if we go back and look at like the timeline of it, you handled how I reacted so well. And again, it was all, listen,
but it was all from love.
Yeah, everything in life is teaching us something.
But listen,
the good, the bad. I mean,
it was the kick in the butt that I needed to be like, wow, I am so dysfunctional. I am so emotionally unhealthy. And that was was that after Jared died when you had that conversation with me?
It was.
It was, okay.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was. Because it was even though like past the vestibular stuff too. I mean, it was all of it. I think it wasn't like in the midst of it, because all of that kind of went down, and then, it's hard to remember the exact
because you
timeline.
probably would have, like, you were probably like, I don't want to push this person into suicide.
Right. I was like, oh gosh. But, there were just, a few moments that I was feeling so overwhelmed, right? By
because you were my only attachment.
Yeah.
You were all I had.
Yeah. And, I think it was just one day that, besides what happened, where I was just like, I just left you out of something, if y'all are wondering. I was just like, I don't want to be around her. Yeah, it stung. And she was like, and it was so wrong. And I'm so sorry. Looking back on it, I'm just sorry. And I know that we've moved past it. But, it was sort of the turning point for us where you were like, dude, what the hell? And then I was like, hey, like, I can't be your counselor anymore. And this just isn't working for me. And that's kind of why I left you out. And then you were like, okay, I'm going to change.
I got to do something.
Yeah. And you did. I mean, you did.
Yeah. And it was like going into a cocoon and emerging, as a butterfly.
Yeah.
But I needed that.
Healing is.
But here's the thing. God isolated me for a reason.
That's right.
He isolated me, and he supported me, and he held me up.
He wanted you all to himself.
Because he wanted me all to himself.
So that
he could show me that his love could heal me.
That's right.
And yes, I believe he also pointed me to some people on earth that had some great science behind these healing mechanisms. But I can't leave out the fact that his love was the stabilizing force for me to even get to that.
Yeah, he is our greatest friend.
A lot of people are like, well, what healed you then? Psychology or God? And I'm like, both.
Yeah.
I was so unstable that I could not function.
Yeah.
That's what I don't think a lot of people understand.
I do.
You're like, yeah, I was there. I had a real breakdown. I mean, it was like more of a, I don't know if I could technically call it I call it a nervous breakdown, but it was because my nervous system,
the verge, for sure.
I wasn't psychotic.
No.
There was no psychosis. Let's put it that way. But the vestibular migraine we now know that chronic migraine is from emotional trauma and overstimulation of the nervous system. Again, so anybody out there that suffers from migraines, it's your nervous system. It's not, because you ate something, okay? You eating something is triggering the histamine that is already being overproduced because you've maxed out your serotonin, and serotonin and histamine are in a delicate balance. Yeah. So when you max out your serotonin because of emotional or relational stress, then histamine gets out of control. When histamine gets out of control, you overdilate your blood vessels. You're going to see things like dizziness, fatigue, anxiety, skin issues, gut issues, all of that. So I had all of it.
Yep.
I had every single one.
We both did.
Check. Right? And I think it's important that people realize that emotional trauma will cause more physical health symptoms. If you are one of those people out there that are chasing doctors and chasing like, what is wrong with me? Nobody can give me an answer. Check into your attachment trauma.
That's right.
Because you will be blown.
Yep.
You will be like, oh my gosh, like this is an overtaxed nervous system that doesn't know how to function outside of fight or flight. Where you're producing mass amounts of histamine.
And I think this episode just is testimony to the fact that, earning your attachment security isn't just for your romantic relationships.
No, it's for your friendships.
It's for all of your relationships, the relationships with your children, the relationships with your coworkers, all of them. And when you're able to achieve it, you're just so much more conscious and aware, and of all the things that matter when it comes to your healing journey.
Yes, right? Because kids are stressful.
Yeah.
But honestly, I feel so much more equipped to raise secure and loving and emotionally mature and healthy children than I ever have in my life. And I had to go through what I went through to get to the other side. And honestly, that hard conversation we had was a pivotal part of it.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, if my one attachment can't take it anymore, then you know, okay, like it's
Jesus is now my homeboy.
Is that's it. And again,
he's still our homeboy.
Oh gosh, yeah. Jesus is still my homeboy. Yeah. But I think that it's crucial that you understand that earning your attachment security may positively or negatively affect your friendships because and I guess in overall way, it's an overall positive because you don't need people in your life that are crossing your boundaries, that are sucking the life out of you, that are treating you poorly. You don't need that added stress. Life is hard enough.
Agreed.
Without friends that you can be honest with and that you can rely on and can treat you with respect and love and cherish you. Yeah. And I think that that's a good place to wrap up.
And I just think too that, you know, I'm a firm believer of that the moment that you're able to recognize the people that aren't meant for your life anymore, you know, some people have seasons.
Yeah, friendships definitely come in seasons and it's okay to let people go.
It's okay to let go because then it makes room for the right people.
It does make room for the right people. It makes room for peace.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's across the board, guys. That's across the board for friendships and for your romantic relationships. So if you are looking to achieve your attachment security, it will be the best thing you ever do for yourself.
Hands down.
And, you know, obviously Dr. Hensley has lots of great testimonies on our website of people who have done it. And you should go check those out. And while you're there, check out all of her services at thedatingdecoder.com, which guys, very soon, it's going to be thelovedoc.com. The rebranding is like
in full force.
This close.
I mean, we are basically just waiting on our static website to connect to our Kajabi platform. Right. Kajabi platform's already ready to go. We just got to integrate the two of them.
Yes.
So everything on socials has been changed over to the Love Doc, Dr. Sarah Hensley. So don't be afraid if all of a sudden the Dating Decoder goes away. We are still here.
Yes. The business itself is still exactly the same. So please go check her out at thedatingdecoder.com. Look at all of our services. For our listeners, we offer promo code LoveDoc27 for 27% off.
That's a huge discount.
Yeah. So use that at checkout. And please, if we can encourage you to do anything this year in 2025, it's to earn your attachment security.
It's life-changing.
It is. So we love you guys. And until next time, peace, love, and perspective.